Non-Americans of Reddit, what scandal is happening in your country?
South Africa. Turns out that after initial discussions with Pfizer about a vaccine in July, our government just failed to respond to follow-ups until the end of the year. So now there's no COVID vaccine ordered, and no money to buy vaccine with, so taxes may need to be raised.
Czech Republic. Our government got vaccines without syringes. Also, most of our politicians are corrupt as well, and we had 3 ministers of health reselected in the last year. Also, our premier Andrei Babis is making sure that a lot of funding goes to a corporation called Agrofert, which is destroying the landscape, because he has a lot of stock in it.
Kenya. President admitted on radio that roughly $20 million, 2 BN Kenyan shillings, is being embezzled daily.
I have been watching this news explode in Russia. Actually, it's been exploding in countries outside of Russia that watch that part of the world be closely. This may have been a blip on the hellscape of 2020, but Alexei Navalny, anti-fascist activist, not to be directly associated with the US Antifa activists, was poisoned in August, survived, helped connect the poisoning to Putin, and recently showed up in Moscow, to be immediately arrested, before publishing a major investigation on YouTube into how Putin has amassed his wealth and his extreme corruption. I know it's 2 hours of subtitles in Russian, but I hope a lot of people watch this.
Irishman here. We're currently uncovering more information about our mother-baby houses, where a young single was sent and abused by psycho nuns and had their newborns taken away from them because 1960s Irish society frowned upon unmarried mothers.
Denmark. We're showing a children's show about a guy with an extremely long penis that keeps getting him in trouble.
Italy. I have no idea what the government is doing, but apparently we have been without a government for a couple of days.
Indonesia. An American black, lesbian influencer in Bali made a thread on Twitter promoting her luxurious lifestyle and selling a $30 ebook and $50 per hour consultation service about Bali life. Bragged about not having to pay taxes since she's remote working for a US company, overstaying on vacation visa, which is illegal, paying cheap rent for her paradise treehouse, although said cheap rent is 2x the minimum monthly salary of locals, having an insider to help foreigners evade rules and travel despite COVID restrictions, living the life in LGBTQ friendly place. Many Indonesians, and Indonesia by law, are not LGBTQ friendly, and I can't explain how much harm she's causing by saying this tweet goes viral, and in a rare moment the whole country could unite against one enemy. Lectures about gentrification and neo-colonization galore. Memes are everywhere. The influencer played victim, saying all the haters are just racist and homophobic. The story reaches international Twitter, who thought she's being discriminated against, and hilarious multi-language flame war ensued. It went across other social media and eventually to news outlets and the authority, and the next day she got deported. Probably will fuel a crackdown on trashy foreigners in Bali, since a Russian influencer who's been breaking laws around Bali just got caught today and will also be deported this week.
Recently changed the name of dragon fruit to kamalam, which is Sanskrit for lotus. They say it is because it looks like a lotus, and apparently calling a fruit dragon is inappropriate. SMH.
There are currently 40,000 Australian citizens stranded overseas due to arrival restrictions and limited places in hotel quarantine. Some of these people have been overseas since last February. That's almost 12 months. They're continually bumped off flights. Some have been bumped 7 times. I know someone who has been on the waiting list since February, and their next flight date is April. That's 14 months since the pandemic started. He's been bumped off 5 flights so far. I have no issue with limiting arrival numbers. I have no issue with requiring people to quarantine in hotels / mining camps / purpose-built facilities upon arrival. Edit. After reading these comments in the last 4 hours, my opinion on the above changed. The scandal is that they have received next to zero support from the Australian federal government beyond this advice: find a homeless shelter. There are stories of people who have lost homes, businesses, life savings, superannuation. Families have been split up. Pets have been killed. There are stories of people's pets, left in a cattery or a kennels for a 3-week holiday, being sold or given to the council pounds when the owners didn't return. Some have been locked up for visa violations, because they don't have a visa to be in the country they're in, but can't get a flight back home. Some are working illegally, because they've run out of money. They have no health care. They're relying on family and friends sending them money to keep them going. There's a whole offshore immigration detention center which was reopened to house a Sri Lankan refugee family of 4 at a cost of $1.4 million per year, that could be used as an offshore quarantine facility for returning Australians. The scandal is that these people are, for all intents and purposes, stateless. The government has essentially sacrificed these people to keep our community safe, but instead of supporting them and doing what they can to keep them safe overseas, they've abandoned them. Edit. Fixed up a few words because not everyone has been waiting since February, some people have traveled overseas since then.
Norway, an ice cream company changed their logo.
Sudan here, and the term third world country just doesn't cover how much of a beep show we're in. Currently the no one guy in command is an illiterate mercenary who got paid years ago by the former government by giving him an actual mountain of gold. He mined it for almost 10 years, and now he has an army of mercenaries roaming the city like it's theirs. Not so much a scandal, but we're just waiting for the bloodbath to start.
An Icelandic fishing company did some shady business in Namibia. Now Namibia wants the guys extradited and shot, and a Norwegian bank stopped doing business with that company.
Netherlands, a lot of people had been scammed with child allowance, benefit, not sure how it's called in English, by the government. They had to pay it back in large amounts several years ago, some people lost their homes with it and stuff. And now it becomes clear that DID had the rights to that money.
Shall I answer chronologically, or alphabetically? Sherlock Holmes the Philippines.
Mexico, our president decided to give vaccines to poorer countries. Does he think we're rich?
Australia is killing their own wildlife and most of their nature in general by selling out to the logging and mining industry, instead of going for renewables, despite being one of the countries most suitable for both hydro and solar plants.
In Serbia, it was found out that an actor who had his own acting academy for kids raped at least 5 of them when they were the age of 15 to 17. So it's mostly about that on the news and of course the vaccines.
A sort of famous singer in my country touched a boy's dong in the middle of a concert. His manager just said that it was the way they showed affection and respect in his village. Obviously jurisdiction is absolute garbage here, so he's free doing whatever the beep he wants. And now he was caught with a 12-year-old. The singer's name is Silvestre Dangan and I live in Colombia.
Poland, TV star probably raped beauty contestant.
Hong Kong. Can't speak out about the government or you'll disappear to China. Can't peacefully protest either or have certain words displayed on your shirt. Not allowed to vote for your political candidates as they'll get rounded up and arrested. Edit. This was all done under the national security law which basically gives China sweeping power over HK and has turned HK into a police state. Snitching on anyone breaking the NSL is encouraged. There's even a hotline and email. There was a WhatsApp number but it may have been taken down already.
After reading all of the replies, can we just agree the world is beat by politics?
India, everything is a scandal in my country. Starting from farming laws to marriage laws for inter-religious marriages.
In my birth country there is currently a pretty vile and evil regime in total control over the population and is so in power the leader of the group made himself emperor essentially. You may have heard of it. Starts with a C and rhymes with Bina.
Someone threw a chewing gum on the floor. Made national news. I live in Switzerland BTW.
The British government doing anything.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more quality content every day.